Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk alignment, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of Alignful.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast, episode 76. I am your host, Dana Evans, and we've had quite a few really long episodes recently, so thank you for listening, and I hope you're able to work those into your day or your regular old habits so that you can still listen to the podcast even though it's longer. But I wanted to do something different today and try out a nice, short, digestible episode. So we're just going to be talking really quickly about this practice called Morning Pages and how I use my inner voice along with that. So just a little update. I am sitting here, it's the day before my birthday, and my week has been bumpy. Let's just call it a rocky road. I got back from a week in Lake Tahoe area, which is where my brother lives. I visited him. I learned to ski. I have a vlog coming out this week as you're listening about that. And it was a really fun week. But then I came back into my life this week that I'm in. It's currently Thursday. And it was like, it was so hard. Just things were a little challenging. And I have someone coming into town today. And so I was trying to fit like cleaning the whole house, organizing the whole house, unpacking, doing laundry, prepping meals, getting ready for someone to visit, prepping the guest room, all of these things on top of like needing to record podcasts and doing my regular work. And it didn't work very well. I overscheduled and didn't manage my energy well. And it ended with me feeling like, maybe there was a fight or two. But now I'm sitting here happily in my office. I took a nice long shower this morning because I woke up feeling still a little blah. So I did my self-care. So I did my dry brushing, and then I took a wonderful shower. I put essential oils in the shower, washed my hair, and then I got out, put on like my favorite Primally Pure Tallow body balm, and now I'm wearing a turmeric honey face mask while I talk to you guys. So thank you for listening as always. And without further ado, let's jump into this really short, really effective episode on how to start bringing and inviting your inner voice into the conversation when you do regular things in your life, for example, journaling. All right, I am so excited for this episode. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As always, thank you for listening and keeping up with the Tuning In podcast. If this episode or any of them resonate with anyone that you know, of course, you are welcome to share it. And you can tag me on Instagram at Dana_Evans. And I'm just sharing a lot on there right now, along with my vlog, the Vitamin D vlog, which is at youtube.com/alignful. So if you want more from me, that's where you can go. And if you want more from your inner voice, you can go inward. And of course, I offer these services. You can book a one-to-one inner voice session. This month, March, is the first month that I am limiting my sessions. So you can do one session. I have 5 of them open each month. So you can click the link in the show notes or just go to alignful.com and click on work with me to book a session, but I'm only opening 5 slots each month, which is kind of fun. I am desiring to really hone my energy into my one-to-one clients. So if you've listened to the podcast, I am onboarding people for my one-to-one insight coaching experience. It's a 3-month deep dive into self. You get to come home to yourself, release old patterns, release emotional blocks, and truly tap into your inner voice. And we allow it to guide the conversation. And then we use mind-based coaching to really help you follow through on what the inner voice is suggesting. And then we do subconscious reprogramming to help release anything that is not serving you and that is keeping you stuck. So those are the ways. And then this little episode, we are talking about another way for you to tap into your inner voice. So I don't know if you've heard of Julia Cameron, but she is a very famous author and she's 72 years old. Oh, her birthday is March 4th. So I think if you're listening on Wednesday, her birthday is tomorrow and she's 72. And she has a book called The Artist's Way. And this is a very, very famous book, A Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity. And I listened to an interview with her the other day, and it was so wonderful to hear. She actually talks specifically about the inner voice. And, we use different terms for that, but she uses inner voice as one of her phrases. And she talks about the need and desire to connect to that instead of just connecting outward. How even she finds herself asking other people for advice constantly and then realizing or forgetting to just tune into herself, to her inner voice for that guidance and that advice. And she has a new book out called The Listening Path, The Creative Art of Attraction, where she talks even more about this. But in The Artist's Way, one of the many practices that she has you do, I haven't read the book, but I've read highlights of it. One of the many practices that she has you do to reconnect to yourself, right, to your creativity, which comes from restoring from within, is morning pages. And morning pages is this beautiful practice of free writing first thing in the morning. And I forget exactly how she describes it, but within the first 45 minutes of waking up, it's like your mind and the critical mind hasn't fully activated. And because of that, it's not going to get in the way as much of your journaling and your writing as perhaps if you were doing it at the end of the day or in the middle of the day, or even just once you've already started your day. So she suggests, and I've heard this also called stream of consciousness writing, when you first wake up, just write whatever comes up. And she suggests this as well, and just giving you that time frame of that first 45 minutes. So you wake up and you get to this journaling practice and you just start writing whatever comes up. And for example, the first time I did this, I wrote, I don't know what I'm supposed to write, but I know I'm getting really close to my 45-minute mark, so I better get going. Right? Just whatever is coming through. You can complain, you can criticize, you can say what you're mad about, what you like, what you don't like. But really, the purpose is just to let things flow onto the pages. And what she's found is that it usually starts very heavy with the mind, and then some more of the creative flow shows up. So some things that you didn't expect are going to show up, and some insights will show up if you're willing to continue writing and in that space. So my experience, so I've started this practice. By no means I'm doing it every morning, but I am doing it and I'm writing on paper. And she's very specific that you write on paper. I've always journaled in a computer document, but she said writing on paper, it slows you down, which to me is annoying. I'm like, well, I want to type fast. I want to get everything out, because my journaling practice has typically been I recap the previous day and then talk about some other things. But this is more what's on your mind or in your heart in this moment. And when we're putting pen to paper, it's slowing us down so we can be more present to the information that is coming through. So we're having that touch point with our inner selves as we touch the pen to the paper. And what has happened for me, and I'm really enjoying this, is I typically start writing and it is very mind-based. And I write whatever's on my mind. I'm frustrated about this, or I'm annoyed about that, or I didn't sleep well, or I did sleep well, or I'm proud of myself for this. And it's just, I would say, a little bit more surface level. And as I continue writing, what happens is it's like we're digging a little bit deeper. Now, I've noticed that in the past, I would just kind of stop after that surface level, but I have been inviting myself to continue writing beyond that surface level so that I can experience more from this process. And what I have found when I allow myself that extra time, when I'm not rushing through, but when I'm tuning in and slowing down, is that some more wisdom starts to come out. Not just wisdom from my inner voice, but understanding of what's behind this. Like when I'm feeling frustrated about something, I dig deeper and just keep writing. And the writing starts to resolve the problem. So what do we do as minds, right? As human minds, we want to solve the problem. So we have a problem and we want to think our way out of the problem. But we can't solve the problem from the same level that it was created. And problems only exist and are only created within the mind. So what happens when we try to think our way out of something is it's not as effective, especially if we're just thinking at the problem, taking it at face value, directly thinking about the problem. What about if we can get deeper, right? And this is the mind-based coaching, right, that I get into in my work. I'm a coach for James Wedmore, and the mind-based coaching is like, let's get beyond that surface level. Like, what's the belief behind the problem? For example, if I'm frustrated that I didn't get enough work done the previous day, what's the belief behind that? And as I continue to write, it might be like, I'm afraid that I'll never make the kind of money I want to make doing the work that I love. Versus just being like, if I tried to solve the problem if I didn't get enough done, the solution might be, well, you have to manage your time better or your energy better. Whereas if I get to a deeper level of a belief through my writing, it's like, oh, I'm afraid that I can't make the money I want to make doing the work I want to do. And that's a much different problem, quote, problem that needs to be addressed than like, I need to get more done. You see? So through that journaling process, it's like we go through these stages of getting a little bit deeper, as deep as you allow yourself to go, right? And what I've done then is once I feel complete with the mind stuff, then I'm like, okay, good. I journaled, check. I did my morning pages, check that off the list. Next. But here's the next step. Here's how you can take it deeper and truly connect to your inner voice. Because Julia Cameron talks about how her inner voice comes through and how she'll ask it questions. So what I've been practicing is after I write from the perspective of the mind, and it's very clear. Like I'll get some insights, I'll get to beliefs, but it's very mind-based. The desire is for me to stop writing at that point, but to go deeper, I then turn the page and I write, inner voice, how do you see this? Because what I find is usually in the course of the journaling, like there is a problem that then you might focus on or write about more. Like our mind will tend to lean towards something that it wants to deal with. And it could be good or bad. I mean, whatever, however you classify it, it could be a problem or not a problem. But regardless of what it is that you've spent most of your time writing about, it's likely just from the perspective of the mind. And the mind is only 5% of our consciousness, right? 95% of it is subconscious. And then we have all of consciousness, which is where our inner voice comes into play. So the mind is relatively limited. So I write, inner voice, how do you see this? And then take a breath and exhale and allow that wisdom to come through. And oh my gosh, each time I do this, it is so amazing because journaling about something from the mind, it is cathartic, but it doesn't always resolve the feelings, right? In fact, sometimes talking and complaining about things makes it worse, right? But then when I ask my inner voice about it, it's like something totally different comes through. And the times that I have done this, I kid you not, like it resolves itself. And it resolves itself not from like a mental problem solving way. It resolves itself internally, as in I feel differently about the quote problem. I feel differently. Like I feel a relief. I feel a release. I feel that something shifted within me and how I'm viewing and the perspective I have on what I was journaling about from the mind. So this is such a simple practice. You don't have to do morning pages in order to do it. You don't have to call it that. But I do know that we're more receptive to receive early in the morning before we've really allowed the mind to activate. So just giving yourself a little space, even if it's just occasionally, if you have something that's on your mind that's weighing on you, write about it. Let the mind have its say. You see, the mind has to get the stuff off of its mind, get it onto paper, and then invite the inner voice to share. You see, the inner voice is always speaking to you. It always is there to communicate, but it is up to us to actually invite it in and allow the wisdom to come through. So when you just ask it, right? You can do this just in daily life when you're feeling stressed about something or whatever. You can say, "Oh, inner voice, how do you see this?" and see what comes through. So that is my short little tip for you this week. I would love to hear if you have a journaling practice, and if you do, have you ever invited your inner voice into that conversation? And if not, and you're excited to try that, let me know how that goes and what comes through. It has been a pretty transformative experience for me because I had previously either done inner voice writing specifically or mind-based writing, journaling. And now I am merging the two and really utilizing the inner voice to help resolve what's going on in the mind. And I hope this practice is something that inspires you as well. So thank you so much, as always, for tuning in, and I'll catch you next week. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tuning In podcast. As always, if this would resonate with anyone you know, please share the episode. You can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans, or find me on my website at alignful.com.